Getting the most from corporate headhunters requires a little bit of understanding of how the headhunting community operates. When you're an executive, you typically get tapped on the shoulder by a corporate headhunter at some point in your career. These are specialised boutique professional services firms that are engaged by companies to identify top talent for their business. Most of these firms, executive search firms, are what we call retained executive search firms, and they are retained by the company to find that top talent. Typically, that means they're being paid a fee of approximately up to a third of the person's first year's salary in the position. So if a person was earning $300,000, the executive search firm will be charging a fee around the $100,000 mark, and they typically get paid that fee in installments, and they get a third on commencement of the assignment, a third on shortlist, and typically a third on completion. So it's important to understand how the search firms operate, and you need to understand that they are representing the client, not the candidate. Now, that doesn't mean they don't treat candidates well and don't take into account candidates' interests and desires and career, sort of pathways, but they're not there to advise the candidate. They're not there to be a career coach or mentor or counsellor. And you have to be really on your toes when you're dealing with a corporate headhunter because they are representing the company. Think of them as an HR ambassador. They're an extension of the human resources department for the company, engaged to find that top talent. Now, you ideally want to be headhunted at least 2 or 3 times a year, if not more. That is an indication that you are desirable, you're a hot candidate, people are trying to track you down, and if you're getting calls from the top executive search firms in the world, that's a sign that you are recognised as top talent. And these firms do in fact map out talent in organisations. They have headhunter lists, they have top talent, top executives in different fields that they're tracking, they're monitoring what executives are doing, and they have a research function which is designed to identify that top talent. Now, you basically want to, get onto the headhunter's radar. There's a number of ways you can do that. You can be referred to an executive search firm for a search. You can be contacted directly via maybe a LinkedIn platform and be presented with a career opportunity. And you can potentially also go directly to the search firm to get registered with the firm. But that's kind of your last resort. Ideally, you really want to be on their radar in the first place. And that comes about by, being high profile, being a thought leader, being on the platforms like LinkedIn, sharing your thought leadership, doing speeches, conferences, really being out there so that people start to notice you and, people recommend you or speak highly of you. That's ultimately how you get on the radar of corporate headhunters. When you have been approached about a brief by a corporate headhunter, it's very important that you act professionally throughout that engagement. Headhunters have long memories, and they have, a real process behind how they're going to shortlist those candidates. They are usually quite transparent and helpful, but you have to remember again that they are representing the client's best interest. They won't necessarily give you full, frank feedback at every single step of a recruitment process. That's not their job to do that. They will give you some polite feedback. They might try and keep you in the mix, so to speak, of an executive search assignment, but they're not going to tell you warts and all what a client has said about you or where you sit in the pecking order of the executive search shortlist. They're not going to give you full transparent feedback. And a lot of complaints I hear from executive candidates is when they get radio silence from search firms and recruitment firms, and they're not being told whether they've been shortlisted or they're not being told they've missed out on the job. And I appreciate how frustrating that is from a candidate perspective, but from the search firm's perspective, it's not their job to kind of really keep you completely informed, because if you were told the exact truth, you'd probably bug out of the search. You probably would, go and look at other opportunities, and they don't necessarily want to lose candidates from a process until they've locked in on that final candidate of choice with the employer. Over the years, I've experienced, the highs and the lows of the search industry. There are some very good professional executive search firms. The top 5 firms in the world haven't really shifted too much over the years in terms of their pecking order. They hold a very, very special place in the executive search market, and they literally recruit the vast majority of CEOs and board directors at the ASX or the listed part of the market. And they are certainly, if you can forge a good relationship with a top corporate headhunter, they can open doors like you would not believe into incredible C-suite career opportunities. Just remember, though, they're representing the client. They will be very professional and polite with you, but they're not there to be your career counsellor. They're not there necessarily to kind of give you a lot of career advice and help you get a job. They have briefs to fill, and if you can match that brief, you will be hopefully shortlisted and presented to a client. And that's not to be underestimated. That door opening capacity is very powerful in a senior executive's career journey.